It is a sunny and humid day in the South Korean port city of Busan. The sounds of street noise and human activity can only be heard faintly in the distance, allowing occasional bird song to be easily audible. In the courtyard of a massive office building with the sign IHAILAB, several large, muscular men in black suits and sunglasses gather. Shortly thereafter, a young South Korean man with glasses and a briefcase handcuffed to his wrist steps out of the building, moves into the center of the group, and heads toward a large, high-gloss black Cadillac Escalade ESV Armored, whose door is held open by an equally muscular and stern-looking Korean man. This is Jin-Ho Kim, a talented IT specialist and programmer for the company. Suddenly, numerous drones fly into the scene, and a massive gray-white cloud of smoke rises in the courtyard, obscuring visibility so much that the men can barely see their own hands in front of their faces. Panic breaks out among the men, and those in black suits run toward Jin-Ho Kim to protect him and his briefcase. Almost simultaneously, several figures in gray suits with masked faces charge at the Koreans. Due to their attire, they are barely visible in the fog to the surprised Koreans. Only the flashing of several muzzle fires, accompanied by the hissing sound of a silenced pistol, can be seen. After a short time, the young Korean with the briefcase emerges from the fog. Three figures in gray hold him tightly, dragging the screaming man into the Cadillac, which appears to already be under their control. With loudly squealing tires, the vehicle finally speeds out of the courtyard in front of the building. Helt enters C's office, unshaven and with his collar slightly askew. He's had a long night, abruptly cut short by C's call and the order to report for duty in his office the next morning.
Good morning, C. What's so urgent that you had to call me in on my weekend off?
We need you in South Korea. An advanced kernel for military-grade AI technology, along with its creator, has been abducted there. According to one of our agents on the ground, it's suspected that Letitia Volkov, an influential oligarch from Kazakhstan, is behind the criminal act. However, we're unclear on what the Black Rose, as her compatriots call her, intends to do with it. She has no military background and is simply known as a ruthless, greedy, and very attractive woman. Quite your type, if I may speak openly. And while we're being open, if you keep going the way you have since the divorce, you'll end up just as dead as your recently fallen British colleague from MI6.
Let that be my concern. I think I'd like to get to know the Black Rose a bit better. She sounds interesting from what you've said.
Good. Everything you need to know is in here. Included is a plane ticket to South Korea. You're heading to Busan. You fly in 4 hours.
In 4 hours? You can't be serious.
Helt takes the bright red file and walks toward the office door. Then he turns around one more time.
He is not dead.
He turns toward the door and walks out of the room. Nearly 3 hours later, Helt is sitting in the waiting area of Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. He still feels exhausted from the previous night, his head resting in his hands. The noise from the countless people around him is nearly driving him mad. A young Asian woman rolls her suitcase over Helt's foot.
Excuse me, sir.
Almost unfazed by the situation, he takes his phone from his gray jacket and calls his superior, C.G. Werner.
Hello, C. My flight leaves in an hour. Who is my contact on site, and what are the further instructions?
Min Jae Kim is your contact. He knows what you look like, will find you at the airport and introduce himself to you.
C, are you still there?
Certainly, Mr. Helt. Where were we? Did you understand everything?
Yes, contact in Busan Min Jae Kim. He'll recognize me there. Everything's clear.
Good, my friend. Then everything is in order.
Helt takes his phone from his ear, slightly puzzled by his superior's choice of words, a man he's known for over 20 years. Without hesitation, he dials C's number again.
Helt, what is it now?
Excuse me, is everything all right?
Of course. What could be wrong? Are you all right, Helt?
No, everything is fine. I just wanted to make sure.
A few minutes later, Held is seated on the plane and falls asleep from exhaustion. Held enters the vast building of Gimhae International Airport. It's already well past midnight in Busan. There's a certain calmness, combined with the typical airport atmosphere, predominantly Asian travelers, the familiar sounds of announcements, and soft chatter filling the air. The arrival hall is bright and welcoming, with large windows letting in plenty of daylight, and the architecture is very modern. Since the hall isn't overly crowded, Held immediately notices a roughly 45-year-old Korean man with a beard and a somewhat inscrutable expression who's looking at him. The man's face doesn't show any particularly friendly gesture. He merely gives a short wave in Held's direction to indicate that he's the local contact. Held shakes the man's hand with a slightly wary look, and the two quickly engage in some superficial small talk.
So you're Adrian Held, the one they call at the BND for the really special assignments.
That about sums it up. What is there to know about you?
Kim smiles somewhat smugly and replies cheekily,
Maybe I'll tell you over a glass of soju at a trendy little bar downtown. I have my car parked right in front of the building.
If a gin and tonic will do, then count me in.
Held, don't tell me you traveled all the way to South Korea without wanting to get a taste of our culture and customs.
Let's just drive and get to the point. By the way, I know South Korea and Busan very well. This isn't my first visit here.
The two men leave Busan Airport and get into Kim's car. It's a sleek, silver metallic Lexus LS 500, standing out sharply from the other vehicles around it. They talk as Kim drives noticeably fast through the wide streets toward the city.
I was surprised by the call with Werner today. He seemed a bit odd, quite unlike himself. Maybe it's the mission that's weighing on him.
That must be it. Don't worry too much about it. Let's focus on the mission.
Held glances at Kim from the corner of his eye, studying him carefully.
How long have you been in Busan, Kim? The city seems to have changed a lot in recent years.
Oh, almost 5 years now. I've seen it all here, the bars, the harbor. Busan is my second home.
Interesting. Then you must know the old district near Nampodong, with those tiny soju bars, where you can't take 10 steps without being invited somewhere.
Of course. I go there often. Especially the bar, what was it called again? The one by the harbor.
By the harbor? Those bars haven't been around for 2 years. They were all torn down.
Kim is visibly unsettled, but he quickly regains his composure.
Right. I meant, of course, yes, that was a while ago.
Held and Kim enter a hidden bar in Busan, a hidden gem tucked away in a narrow alley near the harbor. From the outside, it appears modest, with a simple neon sign in Korean characters casting a faint glow. Inside, they're welcomed by dim lighting and a warm atmosphere. The walls are paneled in dark wood, adorned with artworks by local artists. High-proof spirits and exotic cocktails line the bar, prepared by an experienced-looking bartender. Sturdy, dark wood tables are filled with patrons, creating a lively ambiance for the late hour. In one corner, a live duo plays soft jazz, blending with the laughter and conversations that fill the space. Large windows line the walls, offering glimpses of the bustling street outside, partially concealed by curtains for privacy. As Held and Kim settle at a table in a secluded area toward the back, a relaxed yet subtly tense atmosphere surrounds them.
What does the BND already know about Letitia Volkov, the one being held responsible for the abduction of the IT specialist?
You don't know? I thought we were all equally briefed.
Well, that's true. But it doesn't hurt to be cautious and go over the available information once more.
Held looks at Kim, his gaze reflecting a blend of guarded suspicion and cool restraint.
I'll be right back. After the long journey, my face needs a bit of water, and I have something else I need to take care of.
Kim smiles with a hint of mystery.
See you in a bit, my dear.
Held enters the restroom of the bar, which in stark contrast to the bar itself, appears dark and dirty. A gloomy, almost eerie atmosphere fills the space. The walls are shabby, painted in dark, faded colors, with peeling paint and graffiti, some of it barely readable. A cold, green-blue neon light flickers from the ceiling, making the already filthy scene look even more ominous. The floor tiles are cracked in places, and the mirror above the sink is old and partially fogged, covered with scratches and stains. The entire room feels cramped and oppressive, the air stale, tinged with a mix of old smoke, alcohol, and cleaning agents that barely cover the dirt. The neon lighting casts harsh shadows, and every movement seems unnaturally distorted in the greenish light. A man in a black suit, who looks Korean, stands by the sink. He gives Held a quick glance and then reaches into his pocket. Held remains vigilant, which immediately proves wise. Behind him, two Korean attackers suddenly appear with long knives, launching an immediate assault. The man by the sink and two others, who burst out of the restroom stalls, charge at Held with a type of battle cry. Intuitively prepared for a threat and well-trained, Held reacts quickly. With a precise strike to the wrist, he disarms one of the attackers and disables the other with a kick to the back of the knee. Terror is reflected on Held's face as he experiences the ordeal, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Yet, he executes his combat techniques with professional precision, almost mechanically. He hurls the disarmed attacker with great force toward the three men in the back of the restroom, seizing the confined moment for escape, and finally reaches the exit of the grim restroom. As he leaves the bar, he doesn't spare a glance at Kim, who stares at him with a shocked expression, exuding an air of elegance and composure. Kim remains seated at his table, fully aware that he would stand little chance against Held physically. And so, Held exits the bar. Several dark-clad men rush toward the bar at Busan Harbor, while at the same time, a white taxi pulls out from the line of cars in front of the bar. Helt sits slightly hunched in the back seat and soon observes from a safe distance as the bar's neon sign and the shadows of the men fade into the distance.
You look a bit worse for wear. Had one too many sojus, perhaps?
Asks the young Korean taxi driver cheekily. He's in his late 20s, dressed in trendy clothing, with a slightly oversized but very stylish pair of glasses that accentuate his face.
I drink gin and tonic, but that can't be the reason, as I barely had any. However, the guests there tonight were rather unusual, which led to quite an extravagant party.
The taxi driver laughs a bit exaggeratedly.
Ah, yes. A party, I see. Judging by the way you look, you were probably fleeing hordes of Korean girls eager to rip the shirt off your back.
He eyes Helt carefully and continues.
What brings you to the tranquil Busan? Judging by your attire, you're either a businessman or some kind of investigator on an overseas mission?
Helt smirks slightly.
If that were the case, I probably wouldn't tell you. Or what do you think?
Huh, mysterious. Are you perhaps something like a European Dachimawa Lee on a secret mission?
Held doesn't answer the question and counters.
What about you? You don't exactly look like a typical Korean taxi driver either.
That's right. I helped out at my father's kimbap shop for a long time after dropping out of school. But that wasn't for me. I'm looking for adventure, always need to be on the move, and I enjoy meeting new people. A taxi is the perfect tool for that. Most of the time, customers share something about themselves, sometimes funny, sometimes sad stories. And it works well because their mouths aren't full of tteokbokki. Sometimes I even drive around pretty young women who like my extravagant style. Believe me, they don't want to get out, even when we've reached their destination.
Helt smiles at him.
Tell me, would you pause your service for a moment and let me rest and make a quick call from your phone for a few extra won?
Of course I'll do that. In the end, you'll tell me what interesting thing brings you to Busan. By the way, I'm Jinwoo Park.
Pleasure to meet you. My name is Helt, Adrian Helt.
Held and Park enter Park's apartment. It's a small, modern space located in a lively district of Busan. The interior is minimalist, featuring a grey sofa, a light wooden table, and posters of indie bands on the walls. Large windows offer a view of the bustling streets below. The kitchen is functional, equipped with white cabinets, a coffee machine, and colorful magnets on the fridge. In the bedroom, a low bed sits next to clothing racks, holding an eclectic mix of quirky and trendy outfits. Plants are scattered throughout the apartment, bringing a touch of greenery, and a skateboard leans casually in the corner of the living room.
Welcome to the real world of Busan.
Let's not waste any time. Where can I make a call?
Park hands him his phone, decorated with colorful embroidery patterns.
Would a strong coffee or espresso be included in the price, if it's no trouble? I'd prefer to make the call alone.
Of course, no problem. I've already disappeared into the kitchen, mysterious stranger.
Held takes the phone, dials a number very familiar to him, and the call is quickly answered.
Trattoria Bella Vita. What can I do for you?
Hello, Helt speaking.
Adrian, would you like to order a pizza?
No, Francesco. Listen to me. You need to take your phone over to Werner's office and hand it to him.
Is this one of your spy games? Listen, I can't just leave here. The pizzeria is full of customers.
Just do it, please. You know me. I wouldn't ask this of you if it weren't absolutely urgent.
Francesco seems to begrudgingly agree with the plan. At least, he stops talking. Instead, the sound of footsteps and the noise of Berlin's streets can be heard in the background. A few minutes later, Werner is on the line.
Helt, what are these peculiar communication methods?
Hello, C. I'm certain the phone in your office has been compromised. The contact in Busan set me up.
Are you all right? Well, I found it a bit unusual how often you called me to emphasize that everything was going according to plan. That seemed odd to me. I thought it might be due to your current situation. Are you suggesting I spoke with someone else? It was definitely your voice, Helt.
Hey, I'm fine. Based on what I read in the mission file, it's possible that Volkov now has access to the most advanced AI technology. If Jin-Ho Kim is still alive, she also has the right expert for it. That's why I bypassed the official phone lines to ensure secure communication.
Good. As always, professional and cunning, my dear. I've already arranged a new contact for you, Thomas Harrington. He's a somewhat retired CIA agent who's been spending his early retirement in Busan for a while now. However, he still has good connections, and there are sufficient incentives for him to collaborate with the BND, at least for small favors. We will inform him of your arrival through a secure channel. He will also receive the necessary information that your equally capable colleagues like yourself, Helt, have gathered. The meeting point is the Biomiosa Temple, tomorrow at 10 a.m. your time.
Understood. Please let me know through our contact how I can reach you securely in the future. I might be able to rest a bit with my new Korean friend before heading to the temple.
Held joins Park in the kitchen, where Park is already preparing a fragrant, strong coffee.
Feel free to be my guest and rest. I was about to finish my shift in an hour anyway. Can I give you a ride somewhere later?
Yes, you can.
The usual calm surrounding the White House, characteristic of a highly secured government seat, is abruptly disrupted as a massive truck with tinted windows rolls silently into position. The vehicle's imposing frame exudes an ominous presence. The driver, dressed in a black uniform, swiftly exits the truck with precise, practiced movements. Moments later, an oversized projector inside the vehicle begins to align automatically. Simultaneously, thick fog starts to pour from the sides of the truck, rapidly spreading and engulfing the entire area in an impenetrable white wall. Staff in the West Wing react immediately. Warnings are issued over internal channels, and security protocols are activated. Two agents burst into the Oval Office, where the president is in a meeting with his advisors.
Sir, there's a problem outside the White House. You need to see this.
The president rises slowly from his seat. He walks to one of the grand windows, his movements deliberate, and gazes outside. The white wall of fog appears surreal, almost like a bizarre piece of art that obscures the familiar view of the Washington Monument and Lafayette Square. Suddenly, an image begins to form within the mist. At first, it is blurry, but it grows sharper with each passing moment, until the towering visage of Letitia Volkov becomes unmistakably clear. Her sharp features and icy eyes dominate the scene, making her appear like a supernatural entity gazing down upon the world. A deep, distorted sound fills the air, resonating with an eerie vibration. Volkov's voice echoes from a loudspeaker, her words amplified as they reverberate through the streets.
Mr. President, you have received a privileged invitation.
She proclaims with a mix of politeness and an underlying threat.
I would like to give you a demonstration, a small preview of the future my technology will bring to this world.
In the Oval Office, the conversations fall silent. All eyes are fixed on the projection as Volkov continues speaking.
Before your eyes, live and unfiltered, you will soon witness the elimination of one of the most well-protected men in this country. This man, surrounded by a small private army, is no match for the precision of my robots. No humanity, no emotions, only perfect control.
The image shifts. A broadcast reveals a luxurious estate surrounded by state-of-the-art security measures, barbed wire, armed mercenaries, and drones patrolling the skies. Cameras sweep the area, monitoring every angle. The defenses appear impenetrable. Then, chaos erupts. From the edges of the projection, dark figures emerge. Humanoid robots executing their assault with deadly precision. In mere seconds, they breach the defensive lines, neutralize the guards, and infiltrate the building. Their movements are deliberate, calculated, and unstoppable. The president clenches his fists, his expression tense with restrained anger.
Turn it off. Immediately.
But the guards who rush to the truck stand no chance of disabling the projector. The transmission continues uninterrupted. Volkov's voice returns, resonating with an unsettling mix of authority and menace.
Mr. President, my technology makes no distinction between rich and poor, powerful and powerless. They are all equal before me. It is up to you whether you choose to work with me or stand against me.
The image in the mist fades, and the fog wall slowly dissipates. The scene outside returns to normal, but the tension in the room lingers. The president turns to his advisors, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and despair.
This is a declaration of war.
But in his eyes reflects the haunting suspicion that this is a war he cannot win. After what felt like an all-too-short night, Helt and Park are sitting in a taxi on their way to the Biomiosa Temple on the slopes of Gyeomjong Mountain in the outskirts of Busan. Park is brimming with energy and curiosity about what awaits them at the temple, while Helt appears still groggy and somewhat drained.
I'm not sure if you caught the news last night. You seem to be in desperate need of your beauty sleep. I didn't hear much from you after you curled up on the sofa. Not that I'm into men, but you've got a really fit body, Mr. Mysterious.
Held responds with a slightly irritated tone.
No, I didn't. I didn't hear what was on the news. What was so exciting?
There was a really cool show in front of the White House. Some crazy but definitely very influential woman presented the president with quite an action movie on a fog screen. Do you know the slightly paranoid billionaire in the US who is famous for having a high-security facility as his home?
Yes, I know who you mean. Get to the point.
He's no longer around. The crazy woman unleashed a cyber army on him, consisting of invincible combat robots, AI-controlled flying and crawling drones that can infiltrate and disable security systems within seconds. That was the final adventure of his wealthy life.
Held immediately appears very alert and focused.
Tell me more about it. What else was said?
Well, look at that. You're a secret agent, I knew it.
Park smiles with a slightly mocking gesture. Helt turns his gaze out of the taxi window, taking in the colorful surroundings of the city of Busan.
That she was able to perfect the technology and turn it into such a weapon surprises me.
Park looks at Helt with a subtle grin.
Adrian Christopher Helt, secret agent of the BND Foreign Division. I can't keep it to myself any longer.
Helt looks at Park with a serious expression.
What the hell?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we can be a bit more open with each other. Of course, only if it doesn't get you fired or thrown into some secret agent prison.
Well then, go ahead and tell me what you've got to say.
Okay, I'll take that as a kind of friendship offer. Since my youth, after hanging up my usually dazzling outfit in the wardrobe, I've turned into a computer nerd in the evenings. And by that, I don't mean gaming or playing around. For many years, I've been programming, writing pretty decent Python scripts for all sorts of things. At some point, I teamed up with a few guys who think the same way, forming a hacker group. Hey, what I'm about to say stays between us, okay? Secret for a secret.
Held looks at him with a face that is both puzzled and amused.
You're overestimating yourself quite a bit, I think. Tell me how your story about me came to be.
Pure facts, my friend. That wasn't hard. My phone was the first thing I used back then to test my skills. Word by word, I was able to reconstruct your conversation. Everything else was easy. With the information I gathered from the call, I sent out a bot to collect every bit of available information about you on social media. That took less than a millisecond, believe me. You can't imagine what people, more or less openly, reveal about themselves online. Our secret organization uses the same technique to tap into companies that couldn't care less about nature and the environment, occasionally disrupting their production software. Okay, that's probably nothing compared to your spy stories, I'm sure.
Wow, I got involved with a real cyber criminal. But you surprise me. I think I've seriously underestimated you.
On closer inspection, it becomes clear that Park is quietly delighted by Helt's compliment, almost imperceptibly grinning to himself.
Maybe I'll come back to your skills another time. For now, you don't need to know more than you already do.
Park stretches slightly, and shortly afterward, the two arrive at the Biomiosa temple. After the two exit the taxi at the Biomiosa temple parking lot, Helt turns to Park and instructs him in a friendly yet firm tone.
Please stay here for a moment. I want to speak to my contact alone.
No problem, I can keep myself busy.
After about 10 minutes of walking along a gently ascending, forested path, radiating spiritual tranquility, the impressive temple comes into view, dominated by vibrant red and mint green colors. At the foot of the staircase stands Harrington, a man in his mid-50s with salt and pepper hair and a face etched with the marks of what must be a turbulent and rugged past. He is lighting a cigarette when he notices Helt. The two men exchange wary glances, their expressions filled with tense vigilance.
You know who I am?
Adrian Christopher Helt, my friend from the BND in Berlin, I presume.
That's me. Then you must be Thomas Harrington, my friend from the CIA.
Now that we've met in person, let's get straight to the point. Werner has given me enough information about you to be sure it's really you. These are tough times for people in our line of work. You can't trust anyone these days.
Is that so? That was one of the first things I had to learn after arriving in South Korea.
You must mean the meeting with Kim. Your colleagues suspect the poor guy is weighed down with concrete slabs in the Nakdong River. At least a visit by the BND field agents to his apartment a few hours ago suggested that someone had enough time before your arrival to thwart Werner's plans with you.
I've already shared my suspicion with Werner that we're dealing with a very cunning opponent, or rather, let's say, an opponentess.
Exactly. Letitia Volkov, an oligarch from Kazakhstan, has been known to the CIA for a long time, but never played a significant role. That changed abruptly after the abduction of Jin-Ho Kim. iHi Lab was set to deliver a kernel with a newly developed AI algorithm to the US for billions. The product ensures absolutely perfect and autonomous military operations using combat robots, drones, and similar military technology equipped with the kernel. We believe there were leaks at iHi Lab that brought Volkov into the picture long before the first business talks between us and the company took place. The raid and abduction must have been planned and prepared for years. The technically sophisticated execution proves that.
Held listens intently as Harrington hurriedly lights a second cigarette.
So far, we don't know exactly what she's planning or what her goals are. However, her demonstration in front of the White House and the elimination of one of the most secure billionaires in the US by a small strike team of robots, drones, and electronic creeping gadgets, with virtually no difficulty, has now caught the attention of all Western intelligence agencies. What we do know for sure is that she has several highly influential contacts in many third world or emerging countries. She carefully selects countries that are barely or not at all controlled by Western states. We believe she has secretly established underground production facilities for military equipment, employing numerous locals for slightly better low wages, but under strict confidentiality agreements. Your mission, Helt, is to approach one of these contacts in Kenya and gather as much information as possible about her motives. The contact is Elijah Kiprono Kater. We know he's looking for suppliers of production machinery suitable for manufacturing hydraulic drive systems for specialized humanoid robots. Werner's agents on the ground, disguised as field employees of a company, have made him an extremely lucrative offer he can't refuse. You, Helt, have already been introduced to him as the company's key account manager, and he's eager to welcome you. The meeting is scheduled for the day after tomorrow at 2 p.m. Kenyan time. Werner has already booked your flight to Nairobi. You'll be staying at the Hemingway's Nairobi.
Held responds relatively calmly to the new plans, replying with a cheeky tone.
Please let C know that I might need another room there. I have someone with me who might be able to assist with electronic information gathering. He doesn't know about his luck yet, but maybe it can all be arranged more smoothly if C doesn't book him a third-rate Airbnb apartment, and instead lets him stay at the Hemingways as well.
Here, take this phone. Everything you need for your trip and accommodation will be transmitted electronically through it. You'll see from the documents whether C agrees with your plans. You can also communicate securely with him through this device. It's been thoroughly checked. Oh, and C mentioned that you'll have a contact in Nairobi who will hand over your service weapon. C said you'll probably need it in a hostile environment full of bloodthirsty hornets.
Harrington raises his index finger in the air as a parting gesture.
Take care of yourself and distinguish between friend and foe. The CIA has also sent their people.
Harrington ascends the stairs to the temple and eventually disappears into the temple building. Suddenly, Park appears behind Helt and smiles at him.
Kenya, I'm curious to get to know the country. When are we flying?
Held, raising an eyebrow slightly.
Normally I'd tell you to get lost, you little wannabe spy. But I might actually have a use for your cyber tech expertise. How about a luxury apartment in Nairobi for a few days?
At your service, sir.
In a dimly lit room with no windows, a metal table occupies the center, surrounded by sparse, uncomfortable chairs. A Jordanian businessman, Omar al-Hazimi, sits at the table with 4 men in white suits who appear to be of Eastern European descent. Their stern expressions leave little room for friendliness. One of the men has a notepad in front of him, ready to take notes, while the others fix their intense gazes on al-Hazimi. Known for his confidence and commanding presence, Al-Hazimi seems slightly unsettled in this setting, though he does his best to mask his unease. At the head of the table stands a large black screen, currently inactive. Sitting directly opposite Al-Hazimi is a man who seems to be the leader. Speaking in a calm, yet authoritative tone, with a deep voice that commands respect, he begins the conversation with Al-Hazimi.
My name is Dmitry Korovin. I am the advisor to Ms. Volkov, who will be joining us online shortly. Let's get to the point. None of us have time to waste. You are here because you can provide us with a logistical platform in Jordan. Through the infrastructure you've established in your country, we are able to quickly transport the materials needed to achieve our goals to the target countries we've selected in the Middle East.
Al-Hazimi responds hesitantly.
You can utilize my well-connected corporate and warehouse infrastructure. I will not ask about your objectives as long as they do not harm my country or the interests of our state.
Ms. Volkov does not concern herself with the interests of any state. You will be more than generously compensated and are here to make a decision right now. Let me also mention that it is a significant risk to disappoint Ms. Volkov. She has the power to effortlessly remove someone in your position from the blueprint, if you understand what I mean. You are replaceable.
Al-Hazimi appears increasingly nervous.
No, it's quite all right. Your compensation for my services is truly more than generous. I will accept your assignment.
Korovin silently stares at him, then shifts his gaze to the monitor at the end of the table, which flickers to life. On the screen appears Letitia Volkov.
Good evening, Mr. Al-Hazimi. I have followed the conversation and have nothing further to add, except...
She remains silent for a few moments, exuding calm, before continuing in a cold, measured voice.
Should we have even the slightest doubt about your loyalty, we will eliminate you without hesitation and make an example of you. I trust you understand your position in the hierarchy and my power to shape things as I see fit.
Yes, I am aware of that.
Good. Dmitry, please hand our new partner, Mr. Al-Hazimi, the USB stick with the detailed instructions and escort him to his plane.
Korovin approaches Al-Hazimi, who has already risen from the table, places a firm hand on his shoulder with a commanding expression, and guides the unsettled man to the door like a parent leading a small child. After Al-Hazimi exits, Korovin returns to the center of the room and positions himself in front of the monitor. Volkov's face almost seems to soften into a faint semblance of friendliness as she gazes at her closest confidant.
Dmitry, I am very pleased with our choice of contact in Jordan. Do not disappoint me and remain vigilant. While we are still in the development phase, we cannot afford any mistakes.
Korovin nods slightly in agreement, smiles at Volkov, and leaves the room alongside the other three men. The monitor flickers off. The sun is already blazing in the late morning as a vibrant melody of English and Swahili fills the air at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Helt and Park step out with light luggage under the snow-white canopies, squinting into the dazzling light of the Kenyan metropolis. While Helt moves with a determined expression straight toward a taxi, Park is completely overwhelmed, captivated by a world entirely unfamiliar and awe-inspiring to him.
Adrian, because of you, I'm now in this paradise. Whatever I can do here for you, just let me know.
After the two have been driving toward their hotel in the taxi for a short while, Park notices one of the popular Kenyan public transport vehicles on the roadside. With the eagerness of a curious child and his characteristic grin, he turns to Helt.
Let's take that colorful matatu over there back to the hotel, please.
Helt glances at Park with a piercing look for a brief moment. Then a faint hint of a smile takes over.
That's fine.
Helt responds. He instructs the taxi driver to pull over to the side of the road.
I'll make sure to remind you of the little favors I've done for you when the time comes.
A moment later, the two find themselves squeezed tightly together in one of the colorful vehicles where lively activity reigns. The interior is filled with local music, though it is almost drowned out by the chatter of the passengers. Park is thrilled by the new experiences and the people who casually try to draw the two into conversations in Kenyan English. While Helt remains reserved, Park practically bubbles over as he shares stories about his Korean homeland. At the reception of the luxuriously appointed Hemingway's Nairobi, a small, securely sealed package is waiting for Helt. The young hotel receptionist hands it to him with a friendly smile. With a curt, "Thank you," he takes the package and follows the impeccably dressed hotel staff member who carries their luggage to the room. When the two arrive in Helt's room, Park is left in awe. The hotel is glamorous by African standards, and the suite rivals the size of a small apartment in South Korea.
Adrian, would it be okay with you if I quit my job in South Korea and accompanied you on your missions in the future?
He asks him a little humbly, with a hint of irony. Helt smiles at him.
It's in your hands. If you prove useful to me here, I'll put in a good word with C, my boss.
Inside the package lies a Heckler & Koch P30 with a 20-round magazine, as well as the following brief note. Meeting with Elijah Kiprono Kita at the Talisman restaurant, 2 p.m. local time, approximately 3 kilometers from the hotel. You have been announced as Christoph Weingartner, your self-chosen companion as your IT consultant. He may keep his own name.
Let's go. We don't have much time to get you some proper clothes. Do you have a second pair of glasses you might need when standing in front of your future father-in-law?
Park nods very subtly with a slightly defiant look, but he quickly realizes that he must not jeopardize the mission. Held leaves the Hemingway Hotel with Park, who appears in an entirely unfamiliar outfit, consisting of simple glasses, a brown suit, a white shirt, and a black tie. They board the ordered taxi, a yellow Toyota Corolla with a casually dressed driver in a white t-shirt. The taxi driver navigates the bustling streets of Nairobi with a certain routine and glances at Park, who looks visibly uncomfortable in his attire. Smiling, he asks, is this heading to a meal with a somber occasion? Has someone died?
Not yet.
We're here on business. In fact, this is our first visit to the Talisman restaurant. Do you think we made a good choice?
No worries. The restaurant leaves nothing to be desired. You can choose between international and African cuisine in an exceptionally elegant setting. This is definitely good for business, believe me. About 20 minutes later, they arrive at the restaurant. As Helt and Park step into the Talisman restaurant, they are immediately enveloped by an atmosphere of colonial charm and contemporary East African design. The intricately carved wooden pillars from Pakistan and the elegant Afghan rugs lend the space a warm, inviting touch. Keta is already standing at the table and waves them over. He is a charismatic businessman in his early 40s, of medium height, with an athletic build and striking facial features, including a chiseled jaw and piercing dark eyes. He is alone, and the table is already generously set with Kenyan dishes and wine. Kita takes a step toward Helt with a cool smile and extends his hand.
My name is Elijah Kiprono Keter. Pleasure to meet you.
My name is Christoph Weingartner. This is my IT consultant and constant companion for business meetings, Jinwoo Park.
As the three men dine together at the table, Kita begins to get a little closer, testing the waters.
Mr. Weingartner, how is it that your company has surprised me with such an exceptionally favorable offer for the delivery of the production machines?
Your requirements are quite straightforward. You seek discretion, reliable and swift deliveries, but have no specific demands regarding the type, appearance, or technical details of the machines. This saves us a lot of time, money, and especially hassle when coordinating with your experts on site.
As you so aptly put it, it's all about money. In the end, money decides everything. What status I have, how high my reputation is, how many friends I have. Above all, power and money are things that attract beautiful women. Are you married, Weingärtner?
Divorced.
Buy yourself a new one. Pick the woman you like best. She will stay with you as long as you're rich and powerful. Anyone doing business with me doesn't need to worry about success, believe me.
Park interjects into the conversation with a furrowed brow.
Well, the girls I know tend to appreciate my humor and way of life rather than needing to be won over with money.
Keita smirks slightly and responds,
That's precisely why you're just an IT consultant and not my negotiation partner.
Park raises his right eyebrow defiantly and looks at Keita without saying a word. After the brief small talk, the conversation quickly shifts to its central topic, and Keita drops his superficially friendly tone.
We all have no time to waste. You were introduced to me as someone who doesn't ask too many questions as long as the deals are profitable, and that's a good thing. I am an entrepreneur and part of an international network specializing in robotics and artificial intelligence. Your task is simply to deliver the appropriate machines for implementation, as you already pointed out. Let me be honest, you are not the only player in the arena. If we are dissatisfied with the products or your discretion, we will terminate the business relationship abruptly.
Park appears slightly distracted, keeping both arms beneath the table and refraining from actively participating in the conversation.
Of course, you can count on our discretion and reliable delivery.
Good. Then I suggest that once you've satisfied your appetite, we head to a secure location to discuss the details. The competition never sleeps, and spies could be listening anywhere.
Helt looks at Keita with a slightly skeptical, thoughtful expression, but quickly agrees.
Agreed. Let's quickly get to the specifics of our business relationship because, as you said, none of us have time to waste.
The three men leave the restaurant after Keita leaves a very generous tip and make their way to Keita's car, a Range Rover autobiography in Santorini black, as one would expect from a wealthy Kenyan businessman.
I suggest that I take you to one of my warehouses to show you the production facility for the hydraulic systems.
The drive is eerie, taking them through deserted streets and remote areas. Park appears nervous, while Helt remains outwardly calm, but is internally on edge. As the three men enter the warehouse, Park's face reflects sheer fear. Contrary to expectations, the hall is quite small and has no windows. Only two rusty ceiling lights provide dim illumination. Keita leads them to a stack of steel structures that, with some imagination, resemble robotic arms. Suddenly, Keita turns to Helt and Park with an air of reckless composure.
Mr. Helt, you don't seriously believe that the organization I work for has failed to account for all contingencies and sources of danger, do you? Quite the opposite of the German intelligence service. We are thoroughly informed.
Held, with a serious expression, moves his hand subtly toward the Heckler & Koch hidden under his jacket. Keita continues.
Better not try that.
He gestures toward four shadowy figures with machine guns emerging from the darkness behind Helt and Park.
Volkov instructed me to eliminate the German problem.
Keita glances at his men.
Do it cleanly and leave no traces.
In a moment, when the Kenyan's focus is on Helt, who is slowly raising his arms, Park, driven by sheer terror, instinctively and swiftly reaches into his pocket and throws a small object into the air. It is a self-activating mini drone, which immediately detonates small explosive charges with deafening bangs, while simultaneously filling the room with a large radius of tiny golden confetti pieces. Helt seizes the moment of shock and reacts instantly. He draws his weapon and with two precise shots to the ceiling lights, plunges the room into complete darkness. In the pitch black, He grabs Park by the arm and pulls him toward the locked warehouse door. Seconds later, sporadic machine gun fire echoes through the space, followed by the sound of a heavy body hitting the ground after a scream, as Helt uses the muzzle flash of one of the machine guns to locate and sweep one of the attackers off his feet. Utilizing the cleared corridor, Helt and Park sprint toward the warehouse door for their lives, eventually making it outside and quickly into Keita's car. Helt, having keenly noticed Keita's characteristic overconfidence in leaving the electronic car key inside the vehicle, presses the start button of the high-powered car and drives with Park through the rough terrain toward the road. Keita and his armed men fire at the vehicle, but the gunfire quickly ceases as the bulletproof windows render their efforts futile.
Damn, this can probably be considered a complete failure of our mission in Kenya.
The now somewhat more relaxed Park immediately retorts.
Let's first wait and see what the data transfer via the forced Bluetooth connection to Keita's phone in the restaurant has yielded.
You sly fox. I had a feeling I'd find a way to make use of you.
No sooner has he said this than 4 equally high-powered black SUVs appear in the rearview mirror, taking up the chase. Helt and Park are being pursued by Keita's men. Like rabid hyenas, they fire small-caliber pistols and machine guns at the rear window of the Rover as Helt and Park flee at breakneck speed along the cracked, sandy road. One of the matte black SUVs finally roars past on the left, slamming into the side of the Rover with a thunderous crash and forcing it off the road.
Whoa, can't the German Secret Service handle a car chase with a bit more finesse?
As Helt struggles to get the vehicle back on track, he responds defiantly.
If you'd prefer to drive, go ahead. That would give me the chance to calmly write the mission report in the back seat.
Barely after he says this, Helt spots a massive and menacing drone on the horizon, equipped with a swiveling mount holding 2 modified RPG-18 anti-tank weapons, hurtling toward them. The 4 pursuers fall back slightly, wary of a potential explosion from a drone strike. After a brief moment of shock, Helt regains his focus, his mind racing for a strategy to evade the deadly weapon. Nearby, he notices a green oasis of bushes and trees standing out against the barren steppe landscape and steers directly toward it.
Jinwoo, as soon as we reach the cover of the greenery, you jump out of the car.
What? That can't be serious.
Your choice. Stay in the car and pray or jump off. I'm activating the cruise control now. Fate will decide our destiny.
At the same moment, the 2 rocket launchers detach from the drone with a loud hiss, hurtling relentlessly and lethally toward the Rover. As soon as the vehicle reaches the green zone, the 2 men fling open the doors and leap into the thick underbrush. The dense foliage breaks their fall with a loud rustling and cracking sound. The Rover rolls forward a few more meters before an ear-splitting explosion engulfs it in a fireball. Motionless and nearly invisible, the 2 remain hidden in the dense bushes as their pursuers approach in their vehicles and step out. Spotting the burned-out wreck, barely recognizable as a Rover, they return to their cars. Convinced that Helt and Park couldn't have survived, they leave the scene. After several moments of silence, Park's voice is heard, calling from the bushes.
Adrian, are you okay?
All good, I just look like a botanical garden invited to a gala.
What a surprise. The only good thing about this mess is that it shredded that brown suit I've been feeling uncomfortable in the whole time anyway.
The 2 brush branches and leaves off their clothes and, looking like a pair of drifters, set off toward Nairobi as dusk begins to fall. After nightfall, the landscape is filled with the eerie melody of chirping crickets and buzzing insects, occasionally interrupted by the sinister laughter and howls of hyenas.
So this isn't exactly how I imagined serving as an assistant agent, or is this just a regular day in the life of a German Dachimawali?
Save your breath for the journey to Nairobi. Only when we reach the outskirts of the city will we no longer be an easy meal for the wild animals around here.
Mealtime? Lions, snakes, and hyenas? Anything else, perhaps?
Don't be such a wimp. So far, you've been doing great as my personal mission strategist. You can handle a few more kilometers of tough mudder.
As soon as I have Wi-Fi again, or at least paper and a pen, I'm quitting. You can count on it.
After another hour of walking, the two reach another green patch.
Wait here for a moment, I need to take care of something.
Nervous bladder. All right, but hurry up. Even with a secret agent by my side, I don't feel particularly safe here.
Park reluctantly sits down under a bush while Helt vanishes into the darkness. The surroundings grow quiet, with only the chirping of crickets breaking the silence. Suddenly, two large, menacing eyes appear in the dark. A deep roar cuts through the night air. Park freezes, his breath catches, as a massive figure slowly approaches. With terror-filled eyes, he realizes it's an overwhelmingly powerful lion. In a barely audible whisper, Park says,
Adrian.
His voice trembles with panic. The lion, ready to pounce, pauses briefly, its muscular shoulders taut. The explosive tension between predator and man seems to freeze time. Park closes his eyes, certain these must be his final moments. A loud crack shatters the unbearable silence between Park and the beast. Two gunshots echo through the night, the muzzle flash briefly illuminating the darkness behind Park. The lion flinches, lets out a deafening roar, and retreats in shock before vanishing into the shadows. Helt steps out of the darkness with a calm expression, the weapon still in his hand. Park slowly opens his eyes, his body still paralyzed with fear.
I hope you don't quit too soon. I still need your help.
I definitely deserve a better job.
After another hour of walking, the two finally reach the outskirts of Nairobi. Shortly after midnight, they find themselves at the reception desk of the Hemingway's Hotel. Following a phone call with Werner, it takes less than 20 minutes before the young receptionist, Riziki, who welcomed them on their arrival day, appears in the hotel lobby. With a friendly smile on her face, she guides them to her car.
We're heading to my apartment. There, you'll have access to a laptop and a secure internet connection. Further instructions will be sent to your work phone.
The young woman's apartment is a little gem. Riziki's flat is small, modern, and filled with light, featuring succulents on the windowsill and warm beige tones throughout. An open kitchen with light wood countertops transitions into the living area, which feels cozy with a functional couch and colorful accents. A small desk with a laptop reflects her modern and ambitious lifestyle, while macrame and handcrafted details add charm to the space. After Park retrieves Keita's phone data using the laptop, he eagerly calls Helt over, who is enjoying a cup of Kenyan tea with Riziki.
I found something interesting. Keita has been texting frequently with someone named Dmitry Korovin on Telegram over the past few days. The signature suggests that Korovin was located in the southern part of Amman, in the Abdun district.
After passing the information to Werner over the phone and spending a short night on Riziki's couch, the Kenyan sun shines through the window onto Helt's face. At the same moment, his work phone rings. On the line is Werner.
Helt, we have finalized your new mission parameters. Korovin is married to a significantly younger Bulgarian woman. Her name is Elena. She lives with him in a luxurious and well-guarded house in the wealthy district of Abdun, as your young companion has already discovered. She doesn't seem to be very involved in Korovin's business dealings and works there as a kind of tour guide for foreign tourists. She is arranged through the well-known cafe and restaurant Wild Jordan Center in the area. You, Helt, should become a regular there starting tomorrow and try to win the favor of the young woman, however you manage that. Gather as much information as possible about Korovin and his activities in Jordan. Unfortunately, you'll have to do without Park there. Since you are already well known to Volkov and her partners, we can't risk drawing too much attention. A lone German in that area will surely be less of a topic of conversation than a Korean-German male duo. Tell Park that we will make sure to show our gratitude for his support.
Got it, all right.
Helt answers and sets the phone aside. Just an hour later, the two men find themselves once again in the main hall of Nairobi's airport.
Adrian, I'm really going to miss you. I've been living a colorful and turbulent life since my youth, but these past few days with you were pure action cinema.
Helt hugs Park and responds.
Don't think you've completely gotten rid of me yet. I've slowly gotten used to you, and Werner doesn't seem to mind you getting occasional glimpses into the workings of the BND, at least as long as you're useful to him.
Just give me a call. You've got my number. Conqueror of the Kenyan killer lion.
Helt smirks, and the two part ways, heading to their respective gates. As Helt reaches the waiting area for his flight to Jordan, he notices a group of passengers gathered around one of the monitors at the gate. Curious, he steps closer and sees the red breaking news banner of the Kenyan news channel Citizen TV Kenya. The news anchor announces,
"Last night, a coup d'etat took place in Guinea-Bissau. A strategically coordinated and synchronized army of armed armored vehicles, robots, and drones neutralized the head of state as well as all key administrative, military, and police institutions. Subsequently, the advanced military machines escorted the new leaders to their designated locations. Shortly after sunrise, these leaders announced the systemic transformation of the state and a new governmental order. The operation was so precise and powerful that neither the population nor subordinate state institutions offered any resistance. Western countries have already responded by refusing to recognize the new government."
Helt does not show the tension caused by the unexpected news and returns to the gate waiting area. After a layover in Qatar and a total of 10 long hours of travel, Helt arrives in the early evening at Queen Alia International Airport in Amman. The temperatures are pleasant and the sun has already set. Helt steps through the automatic doors and is greeted by the vastness of the terminal. The vaulted ceiling, reminiscent of Bedouin tents, stretches high above him. Large glass windows allow the evening light to filter in as the first runway lights begin to blink. People stream in an orderly fashion through the wide corridors between duty-free shops and cafes where the aroma of strong coffee wafts through the air. Helt observes the scene with a sharp gaze, modern, calm, but with an underlying busyness that reminds him of clockwork. After about a half-hour drive, Helt reaches the Four Seasons Hotel in Abdun, Amman. Once in his room, he briefly considers checking mirrors, the phone, and other electronic devices for surveillance equipment. However, his overwhelming fatigue makes him abandon the thought, and he opts instead for the direct route to bed. The following morning, Helt is already seated early with a cup of strong black coffee at the Wild Jordan Center. Using skillful questions, he engages the cafe operator in a conversation about the land and people of Amman, gradually gaining his trust. Suddenly, a young, medium blonde woman with striking green eyes and a stylish headscarf enters the cafe. Her confident stride and elegant appearance immediately draw attention. She heads toward a distinctly decorated table adorned with a magnificent bouquet of flowers and modern bamboo chairs with slender metal legs, as if it was meant just for her. The cafe operator promptly turns away from Helt to warmly greet the woman.
Good morning, Elena. How are you? The usual breakfast as always?
Yes, exactly. I'm doing well when I can be here. You know that. Oh, could you prepare my coffee as a cold brew with date syrup today?
Of course, Elena. Always served especially delicious for you.
Replies the operator in a charming tone. Helt watches the conversation with a subtle smile, remaining silent but attentively following the scene. As he continues to listen, Elena notices his gaze but outwardly shows no interest. Instead, she takes a book from her simple yet color-coordinated bag, removes the bookmark, and leans back comfortably to read. Not long after, the operator personally brings her coffee to the table, As he places the glass in front of her, he leans slightly forward and whispers,
I might have a client for you. The gentleman in the grey jacket at the bar, a German tourist named Enrico Müller, is visiting Amman alone for the first time and might need a local guide.
Elena briefly glances toward the bar, then calmly responds,
If you think so, then feel free to approach him. But please, not too pushy.
No sooner are the words spoken than the operator places a friendly hand on Helt's shoulder and guides him directly to her table.
Good morning. I believe I've already been introduced to you, it seems.
Held greets her and extends his hand. Elena sets her book aside, stands up, and pauses for a brief moment as their gazes meet in a way that seems to signal the cafe operator to refrain from further involvement in the conversation.
Feel free to call me Elena and have a seat with me.
After Helt takes a seat, Elena continues.
My name is Elena Korovin, and more for my own joy than as my profession. I help people discover the surroundings of Amman and its people from a perspective tourists don't usually get to experience.
Interesting. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Elena looks at him with interest.
How come you're traveling alone?
I'm recently divorced and looking for some distraction on this trip. My little daughter, Leah, lives with her mother.
Leah, how lovely. How old is she? And do you maybe have a photo, if I may ask without intruding?
You're not. Here she is. She just turned 3 years old.
He shows Elena a photo of Leah that he carries in his wallet. Elena looks at the photo, then back at Helt.
Leah looks like a child who feels loved and secure. How is it that her father is now sitting alone, thousands of kilometers away, in a cafe in Amman?
Held hesitates slightly, his voice sounding a bit unsteady.
I think it's my job as a field representative for an internationally connected company that led Teresa and me to drift apart. That doesn't change how I feel about my daughter. But the way our marital conflict ended and the skill of her lawyers resulted in me only being able to see her every 2 weeks. With my job, it's even less frequent.
So, it was your job, was it? Your voice tells me this is a difficult topic for you. The bond with Leah, perhaps even with your ex-wife Teresa. In my husband's circles, due to his profession, I often encounter men who outwardly appear tough and invincible. Interestingly, these are often men who, deep inside, fear emotional rejection and abandonment when you get to know them better. They tend to have a rough, impenetrable exterior and subordinate women who obey them unconditionally, perhaps even fear them. That's not the love they might truly desire, but it provides enough security to avoid being left. Some men might even escape into their work to avoid the closeness and commitment they perceive as so threatening. What do you think, Mr. Müller?
Held appears briefly irritated, then changes the subject.
So, what can you show me in Amman, and what is your price?
For you, Mr. Müller, it's free. I don't require any fee, and it would be my pleasure to show you some of the most beautiful aspects of my adopted home.
Elena finishes her drink, stands up from the table, and continues.
Let's meet this afternoon at 3 p.m. right here in front of the Wild Jordan Center.
Gladly. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Elena responds and gives him a look that feels like it reaches into his very core, leaving him momentarily speechless. After Elena leaves the cafe, Helt takes a moment to compose himself, attempting to regain his poise and unwavering professionalism. When he glances over at the cafe operator, the man grins at him, as if he can read his thoughts. Back in his hotel room, Helt's secure, bug-proof smartphone rings. On the line is Werner.
After the takeover of the government in Guinea-Bissau by Volkov, your mission, Helt, has gained an unexpectedly high level of urgency and significance. It is expected that this action could be a first trial run for further, potentially much larger coups worldwide. Due to your current position in Jordan and proximity to Elena Korovin, we have urged the intelligence agencies of the rest of the Western world to exercise restraint. You have 48 hours to implement your mission objectives.
Understood. I'll get in touch later.
Punctually at 3 p.m., Helt arrives at the agreed meeting point. Elena is already waiting for him and greets him with her captivating smile.
Good morning, Mr. Müller. I have a very special surprise prepared for you.
I'm very excited, Elena, and I trust you completely to make my days here in Amman an unforgettable experience.
I hope you're wearing good footwear. We're going to walk through the most beautiful neighborhoods of the old town in Amman.
After about half an hour of walking, the two arrive at an inconspicuous building in the old town. Behind a locked metal door, which she accesses through a personal connection, a narrow staircase leads deep underground. There, she shows him a massive, ancient cistern built by the Nabateans or Romans. The space is illuminated by the flickering light of small lamps mounted on the walls. The water remaining in parts of the cistern reflects the glow, casting an almost magical atmosphere over the surroundings. Helt is struck by the cistern's appearance, its sheer size and presumed historical significance, but increasingly also by Elena's irresistible demeanor and captivating presence. She turns to him, her voice soft and full of pride.
This place used to be used to supply the entire city with water. Today, hardly anyone knows about this treasure.
Which only reaches its perfection when you describe it, Elena.
Helt adds, hoping she will give him that look one more time, a look that could effortlessly make him forget why he's even here. Instead, Elena lowers her head sadly, as if abruptly waking from a beautiful dream and being pulled back into a merciless reality.
It is a great pleasure for me to share all of this with you.
Elena responds after a brief moment of inner reflection.
There are many places of unity and peace here, with great strength and magic, that temporarily free me from a sorrowful everyday life.
What do you mean by that?
I share my joy about what I have discovered and deeply appreciate with the tourists and today with you, as I have no one else.
What about your family?
Elena responds, somewhat sadly.
My husband, Dimitri, prevents any contact with her. I have a mother and a brother in Bulgaria. I also had a younger sister who, however, passed away early due to a heart defect. A treatment abroad could have saved her, but we lacked the money for it. When I was hired as a tour guide for a group of military personnel from Kazakhstan in Sofia, I met Dmitry Korovin, who was clearly very taken with me. He proposed to me without even truly knowing me. My parents pressured me into this marriage because Dmitry, as a high-ranking officer, was very wealthy, and above all, my father never wanted to face the situation again where one of his children suffered due to poverty. He passed away about a year after I moved to Jordan to live with Dmitry. I still believe it was his broken heart when he realized what he must have done to me. As long as I do what Dmitry expects of me, he treats me well. However, he sees me as his property. When I threatened that I couldn't live like this any longer, he relented and allowed me to work here, though in a very restricted manner. He won't admit it, but I'm certain I have hidden watchers by my side most of the time while I work. Still, my work is a small window for me, just wide enough to let a few rays of sunlight shine into my heart. I don't take money for it. That's not necessary.
Helt responds with an unusually empathetic tone.
One fights with a cage from the outside, the other deep within. I wonder which one is easier to escape from.
You built your cage yourself, Enrico. Please don't compare that.
No sooner has she said this than she turns on her heel and walks back toward the large entrance gate of the cistern.
Elena, wait.
The two leave the building and are greeted by a local in an off-road vehicle at the edge of the bustling street in the old town.
Are you ready for the second part of our excursion? I've arranged a camel ride in one of the most beautiful desert landscapes near Amman, Wadi Rum.
With you, I'd probably even go for a ride on a hippopotamus, so let's go.
Fine.
Elena responds, a smile once again gracing her lips as the two get into the vehicle with the driver. During the roughly 4-hour drive, Elena steers the conversation toward Helt's daughter.
How is it for you to see little Leah on your shared weekend?
She is like the sun in a life full of storms and rain for me. When I look at her to say goodbye and gaze into her big sad eyes, I wonder why I never managed to give her a proper family. Teresa and I sat together for nights at the end, debating our relationship. She often told me that she had lost sight of me because I had increasingly withdrawn from both of them, under the pretense of having professional responsibilities. I suppose I did that. I still can't explain why I behaved that way.
Love can be very beautiful, but it can also make you very vulnerable. Enrico, I believe you were afraid of yourself, scared of becoming vulnerable and approachable.
Shortly after, the rugged vehicle arrives in the serene landscapes of Wadi Rum, also known as the Valley of the Moon, a breathtaking and majestic desertscape in southern Jordan unfolds before them. The region is characterized by towering sandstone and granite formations that rise dramatically from vast plains of red sand. A camel handler is already waiting for them with two stately, vibrantly adorned desert animals. Elena, well-versed with handling the animals, guides Helt, who sits somewhat uncertainly and cautiously on the camel, through narrow canyons and beneath natural rock bridges. Eventually, they reach a hilltop where they witness the deep orange sun setting over the seemingly endless desert horizon. As the sun nearly disappears and the landscape is veiled in twilight, the two ride back toward the vehicle.
The night in Wadi Rum, with its unparalleled starry sky, would probably impress you as well. But perhaps I don't want to expose you to the danger of encountering the horned viper or the death stalker on our very first trip.
That's very kind of you, Elena. I'm not used to being exposed to such dangers. But perhaps it would disturb me much more to gaze at the desert night sky with someone like you, and married on the side.
Elena smirks slightly, and the two climb into the vehicle. About an hour into their drive, a deafening bang shatters the silence as one of the SUV's tires bursts. The driver skillfully stabilizes the vehicle and brings it to a halt. While waiting for the tire to be replaced, Elena and Helt take the opportunity to savor the serene nighttime desert atmosphere from a rock by the roadside. Suddenly, Helt pulls Elena sharply into his arms as he spots a highly venomous snake appearing pitch black in the moonlight, gliding toward her. Almost simultaneously, he hurls a rock at the creature, causing it to dart away in a flash. Elena makes no attempt to pull away from Helt's protective embrace, instead looking up at him with a mix of relief and gratitude. She softly says,
Thank you, Enrico. Considering that we'll be stuck here for a while, you've probably saved my life.
Helt responds after a brief moment of hesitation.
Adrian Helt is my name.
Elena frees herself from Helt's arms and responds, surprised.
Adrian? What kind of game are you playing with me?
It was not entirely coincidental that we met at the Wild Jordan Center. I am an agent of the German Federal Intelligence Service, and we have your husband, Dmitry Korovin, in our sights. He is almost certainly the right hand of a powerful oligarch named Leticia Volkov, who possesses the technology and power to violently destabilize and reshape entire states, which we see as a major threat to the global order. Perhaps you've heard of the events in Guinea-Bissau.
And now you're trying to tell me that Dmitry has something to do with this?
It is probably a bitter truth.
Actually, I have heard the name Leticia Volkov before. Beyond that, Dmitry doesn't grant me any insight into his activities. It's always military secret, which he used as an excuse. He also got very angry whenever I asked him where he spends most of his days, so eventually I stopped asking.
With a fearful expression and a soft voice, she asks Helt,
What could I possibly do for the German intelligence service?
Elena, first and foremost, I want to tell you that you mean more to me than just a mission parameter. I will make sure that you are freed from your prison of marriage to an aggressive despot and can live a safe life with your family in Bulgaria, if that's what you want. I promise you that.
What can I do?
We need to know where Leticia Volkov is located. We suspect that a highly specialized Korean scientist is unintentionally in her immediate vicinity, giving her access to one of the most advanced military-grade artificial intelligences. Time is unfortunately running out.
Elena looks at Helt for a long moment and finally responds, her head slightly lowered.
Dmitry is rather careless at home. where he feels safe, letting his otherwise meticulous caution slip. I know where he hides the key to a secure document compartment in his desk. Knowing him, I'd bet there are documents in there that could reveal his connections to Leticia Volkov. I'm willing to get those documents for you if you keep your word.
Held notices how Elena tightly holds his hand with both of hers.
Please take care of yourself, Elena. We'll meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the city. Does that work for you, and do you have a suggestion for somewhere we can talk without being disturbed?
11 o'clock at the Rumi Cafe in Jabal al-Webde. I think that's a suitable place.
Once the vehicle is repaired and ready to go, Eleanor and Helt continue their journey back to Amman. Arriving in his hotel room, Helt lies down on the bed and stares at the ceiling, which is made of dark wood adorned with golden Arabic patterns. It is well past midnight, and an oppressive silence fills the room. It doesn't take long before he drifts into a pensive sleep. Around 10:30 in the morning, there's a knock at the door.
Room service, may I come in?
Held jolts awake, finding himself still in the sandy clothes from the previous evening, lying on the bed. After a quick freshen up in the bathroom and a change of clothes, he finds himself a short while later in a taxi heading to Jabal al-Webde. Upon arrival, Elena is already waiting for him in the outdoor area of the Rumi Cafe. She sits at one of the rustic wooden tables in the back, shaded by an olive tree. Elegantly dressed, she wears a light headscarf that accentuates her mysterious green eyes. As Helt takes a seat across from her, she pulls out her phone.
Here are photos of the documents I considered most relevant. Dimitri really recorded all the key details from his past in some sort of diary. There were also older blueprints of a modular facility located in the jungle of Serrania de la Macarena near the Rio Guayabero in Colombia in Dimitri's document compartment. The facility appears to have been built on the site of an abandoned drug factory. Additional documents reveal that this location, equipped with cutting-edge technology, seems to control subordinate command stations worldwide. It must have involved an enormous amount of money. The papers indicate that the facility was constructed in the inaccessible jungle within just 6 months. Dimitri must have led Volkov's personal guard in earlier years, a unit she established for her protection in Kazakhstan. This likely created a strong bond of trust between the two, even though Dimitri left her service after 3 years for a high-ranking military position in the country. About 2 years ago, Volkov reached out to him again, as he writes, but only through telegram or video calls. He found this unusual, but she explained that it was due to the security needs of a world-changing mission. While knowing Dimitri, it was certainly about money, a lot of money.
Held reaches for Elena's hand as he notices her voice trembling slightly with fear.
What have I gotten myself into? What should I do now, Adrian?
Send me the photos to my phone, pack the essentials, and come to my hotel in Abdun. Everything will be arranged to get you out of here. I can take care of it all. Can you safely return to your estate?
Dimitri has been away from home for 2 days now. He must be on one of his missions. I'll tell the guards that I'm taking some of my things to the cleaners and running a few errands in town afterward. I'll have them drop me off a few streets away from the Four Seasons Hotel and hope they drive off. Adrian, don't think I'm agreeing to something like this lightly, especially with a man I barely know. But I have this feeling, one I can't explain, telling me that what I'm doing is the right thing. Your unique nature, a mix of strength and vulnerability, I find incredibly attractive. And it gives me a sense of safety I've never felt before. Forgive me for speaking so openly, but I felt like you should know this.
Held gazes silently into her eyes for a few seconds before replying,
Even I have rarely met a woman as remarkable and attractive, with so many beautiful qualities. Perhaps it's just fate that we crossed paths under such tangled circumstances, and maybe we should simply take the time we have for each other once all of this is over.
Elena closes her eyes and lowers her head into Helt's arms, which hold her tightly, as if unwilling to ever let her go.
We'll meet shortly at your hotel.
Shortly. Take good care of yourself.
Elena, who has already tied her headscarf back on, and started walking briskly away, turns around one last time.
We'll see each other later. Trust me.
Helt lingers by the table for a moment, standing still, watching her with a pensive and slightly worried expression. On his way back to the hotel, he wastes no time and contacts C to update him on the current situation.
This is the missing piece of the puzzle. We firmly believe that you will encounter both Volkov and Jin-Ho Kim at the facility in Colombia, and we are confident that he is still alive. Given the significant intelligence advantage you have gained through your successful mission, particularly over our partners, including the CIA, we intend for you to approach the facility accompanied by a small-armed special unit, infiltrate it, and track down Volkov. Elena Korovin will be safely extracted from the country and placed under our protection.
Understood. I expect immediate escort for Elena and myself to the airport by our men. I perceive the situation here as highly unstable, especially since Korovin strikes me as extremely dangerous and cunning. I haven't encountered him even once, despite having multiple interactions with his wife. All of this gives me a very uneasy feeling.
Werner attempts to reassure Helt.
Held, everything is under control. You have performed your job with your usual precision and reliability, and we will do the same.
After arriving at his hotel room, Helt packs his belongings, slings his Heckler & Koch across his chest, and sits at a small table in the room, anticipating Elena's call at any moment. After about 30 minutes of nerve-wracking waiting, he decides to pass the time and calls Park.
Adrian, so good to hear from you. Is it time? Is our mission continuing? Should I fly to Germany?
Thus echoes a relentless voice from Helt's phone.
How about Colombia? Maybe you've been missing the wild animals that also definitely roam the jungle there.
Not really, Adrian. But okay, I'm in. Is there anything else I can do for you?
I bet you can. Can you check if a facility in the jungle of the Serranía de la Macarena is connected to the World Wide Web? I'll send you the exact coordinates of the facility via SMS.
If that's the case, I'll find out everything you need to know. I'll enlist the help of my secret internet organization. You remember our talk back at my place? They don't need to know it's a classified BND mission. Trust me, they'll keep it quiet. We don't want to blow our own cover.
I am relying 100% on your loyalty, just to mention that once again.
Yes, boss.
Park responds somewhat defiantly, and the two end their conversation. Almost simultaneously, Helt receives a menacing-sounding text message from Eleanor.
Please come quickly to our estate in Abdon. Our bodyguards are keeping me here, and I'm not sure if Dimitri knows something.
Without hesitation or second thought, Helt storms out of his hotel room, hails a taxi from the bustling street outside, and directs the driver to the familiar address in Abdon. The Korovin estate appears grandiose, well secured, and sprawling across a vast area in the affluent district of Amman. Helt quickly exits the taxi, pauses momentarily before the towering wall that encloses the property, and assesses the surroundings and security measures. To his surprise, the large black wrought-iron gate is unguarded and opens easily. Drawing his pistol from its holster, Helt moves swiftly, using the dense bushes in the front garden as cover as he approaches the estate. His sharp eyes quickly identify a small back door, likely used by the staff, which he finds unlocked. He slips inside with practiced ease. Blinded by rage, his weapon raised, Helt tries to deduce Elena's probable location. He cautiously ascends the grand staircase, his alert gaze scanning every corner, yet he finds it unsettling that no one crosses his path. At the top of the stairs, a large, elaborately decorated door stands ajar. Beyond it lies an oversized bedroom. The cream-colored wallpaper is adorned with golden floral patterns, and the ceiling boasts an opulent crystal chandelier framed by intricate gilded moldings. Pistol in hand, Helt steps into the room, carefully inspecting the door frames, shadowy corners, and blind spots. There, on the large, disheveled bed, he sees Elena lying motionless. Overcome with shock, he gasps softly and whispers,
Elena, no!
He rushes to the bed, gently cradling Elena's head in his hands. Overwhelmed by a deep sense of anguish and heartbreak, he barely registers the sound of a large caliber rifle being cocked and the heavy footsteps of several armed men entering the room. As Helt turns toward them, he finds himself staring down the barrels of multiple firearms, all trained on him. Dmitry Korovin steps into the room, his expression grave, and speaks with measured authority, directing his words at Helt.
You're simply impossible to kill, Helt. But getting involved with my wife was definitely the last mistake you'll ever make in this life. You can count on that.
Helt carefully places his weapon on the bed and rises slowly, his hands raised in surrender, his piercing gaze fixed on Korovin. Korovin continues, his voice cold and calculating.
Did you really think I would ever leave my highly attractive wife unsupervised? Most of the people around here are on my payroll, and the rest either respect or fear me enough to report immediately if anything unusual happens concerning my wife. It gave me no pleasure to punish her for her disloyalty, but she deserved it.
At that moment, Helt can no longer hold back and lunges for his weapon, only to be struck unconscious by the butt of a rifle wielded by one of Korovin's men. The motionless agent is dragged out of the room by the men, and Korovin, unfazed, instructs one of them in a low, commanding tone.
Take him to our factory on the outskirts of Amen and let him witness our completed powerful electronic soldiers before you dispose of him. And make sure he suffers.
Held regains consciousness with a pounding headache, his blurry vision barely making out a group of bulky, tall, black, humanoid figures in front of him. As his orientation slowly returns, he realizes he is tied to a chair in the middle of one of Korovin's factories, where humanoid combat robots are being manufactured and distributed. Behind him stand two armed men, who step forward as they notice he has awakened. One of the men speaks to him.
Korovin wanted you to witness, before your painful demise, what the world is about to face, something no intelligence agency, least of all the German one, will be able to stop.
Held tugs at his restraints and realizes he cannot free himself. He responds,
Do whatever you want with me. Others will come, and Korovin will get the punishment he deserves. Believe me.
Korovin's henchman laughs arrogantly, pulls out a knife, and approaches Helt, when suddenly a group of dark-clad, heavily armed, and masked men storm into the factory hall. Korovin's two henchmen drop their weapons without resistance and raise their hands with intimidated expressions. After the two are subdued, Thomas Harrington and his Jordanian companion, Omar al-Hazimi, enter the hall. Helt is freed by Harrington's men, steps forward, and extends his hand to him as a gesture of gratitude. Harrington removes his glowing cigarette from his mouth, leans back slightly, and says with a smug calmness,
Direct your thanks to Mr. Al-Hazimi. Actually, one of Volkov's intermediaries who got cold feet and tipped us off.
Al-Hazimi steps between the two and responds,
You and your country underestimate us. We are not cowards who cry for help as soon as they, as you say, get cold feet. It was not compatible with my principles and what I believe in, what Korovin plans to do in my country. I realized it too late, I admit that. No one has the right to oppress others with these means and enforce their power at all costs. No amount of money in the world is worth selling your soul for this.
Well spoken, my friend.
Harrington retorts somewhat arrogantly and turns to Helt.
I am aware of your further mission objectives. Good luck in Colombia.
He hands him a Glock 19 pistol and adds,
We were able to listen in on the conversation with Corrivan's 2 lackeys before we stormed the hall. I strongly assume you still have a score to settle with Corrivan. We have time and we'll take a closer look around here before visiting Corrivan's estate. Do what you need to do, Helt. We won't stop you.
Held swiftly, grabs the Glock 19 with 16 rounds and strides purposefully out of the building, where armed CIA operatives and Jordanian police officers stand guard. Without hesitation, he commandeers a police motorcycle, offering a brief nod of thanks before racing off toward Abdul. The evening sky is ablaze with hues of red as the sun dips below the horizon, its intensity fading with each passing moment. Arriving at Corrivan's estate, Helt spots a small delivery truck parked near the perimeter wall, its ramp lowered as workers load cargo evidently meant for Corrivan's operations. Without a second thought, Helt revs the motorcycle, calculating his approach to the ramp with precision. The engine roars as the bike surges forward, launching up the ramp and soaring into the air. Time seems to pause as Helt and the motorcycle hang momentarily in flight, drawing the stunned gazes of the workers below. The motorcycle crashes down hard onto the truck's cab before skidding across the top and narrowly balancing on the wall. With a quick adjustment, Helt regains control and accelerates off the wall, landing roughly but operational on the other side. Wasting no time, he veers into the shadows of the estate before the guards can fully process what has occurred. A security camera swivels to track him, its lens fixating on his position, but Helt moves swiftly out of its view, disappearing into the darkness. After hiding the motorcycle in a shadowed area behind a stack of crates near the house, Helt moves swiftly and silently on foot through the dark sections of the estate, avoiding the agitated patrolling guards. His target is once again the side door, which serves as a maintenance entrance and is less heavily guarded. To distract the guards, Helt tosses a small stone against a metal barrel, creating a loud clang. The guards immediately shift their attention toward the sound, giving Helt the opportunity to sneak up to the door. This time, however, the door is locked. Retrieving a small tie pin from his inner pocket, he skillfully works on the lock, and within seconds, it clicks open. Entering through the rear entrance, Helt quickly and stealthily makes his way toward the dimly lit staircase leading to the main building, climbing cautiously. Midway up, he hears footsteps from above. Positioning himself in a dark corner on the upper floor, Helt watches as 2 armed men rush out through a door beside him in a frantic manner. Acting on instinct, he grabs an almost man-sized antique vase and smashes it over both men with such force that shards of the vase scatter across the room. One of the dazed men has a key ring attached to his belt, which Helt quickly snatches. He drags the 2 out of the entryway and locks the heavy door, using the appropriate key to create a barrier against the guards outside. Moments later, Corrivan appears in the hallway, holding a heavy Nagant M 1895 revolver. Without hesitation, he fires 2 shots at Helt. Reacting quickly, Helt dives behind a hallway cabinet, though one of the bullets grazes his right shoulder, tearing through his suit. Peering out cautiously with his weapon drawn, he sees that Corrivan has already retreated into his office. With 3 precise shots, Helt takes out the hallway lights, plunging the corridor into darkness as he advances toward the open office door. The room ahead is brightly illuminated, but Corrivan is nowhere in sight. Suddenly, 2 shots ring out, narrowly missing Helt as he presses himself against the door frame for cover. In a split second, Helt grabs a coat rack beside the door and hurls it into the office. 2 more shots follow, shattering the wooden object into splinters. Now able to pinpoint the shooter's position, Helt moves with the agility of a gazelle, leaping into the room. He rolls across the floor and aims his pistol directly at where he expects Korovin to be. Just as he is about to fire, another shot cracks through the air, striking Helt's pistol and sending it flying across the room. Disarmed, Helt watches as Korovin emerges from his hiding spot, his heavy Nagant M1895 revolver trained on him. A sinister grin spreads across Korovin's face as he laughs menacingly, reveling in the moment.
All right, Helt. Let's end this right here. A good shot, wasn't it? It was supposed to hit your head, not your ridiculous pistol. But this way, I get to savor your death a bit more.
Held stands motionless in the room, his expression unwavering and his gaze locked on Korovin, silent and unflinching.
There's just one small thing I should mention. Your Nagant M1895 holds 7 rounds, which you've already spent throughout this facility. Unless, of course, your weapon is custom-made. Well, that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Held moves slowly at first, then sprints toward the surprised Korovin, who desperately tries to pull the hammer on the empty chamber of his revolver. Helt leaps and hurls Korovin with such force against the oversized window behind him that it shatters, sending Korovin screaming to his death below. As the shocked guards outside the estate discover Korovin's lifeless body and look up, they catch a brief glimpse of Helt staring down at them with satisfaction before he ducks to avoid the machine gun fire from the guards. At the same moment, a massive explosion erupts. The surroundings are briefly illuminated as shards of the large iron gate scatter into the air. Harrington's special unit storms the premises with loud battle cries, and shortly after, the gunfire ceases as the unit takes control of the situation. When Helt, completely exhausted, encounters Harrington in the entrance hall, he simply says,
"Thanks."
Then he heads toward the completely destroyed gate. Harrington calls after him,
"You're welcome. And make sure to get that wound treated. Our mutual friend Al-Hazimi surely has the best medical connections here."
Held raises his right arm as a farewell gesture, or perhaps to show Harrington that the injury isn't too severe, and he leaves the scene. After having his wound on the right shoulder treated at the King Hussein Medical Center in Amman, Helt sits in his dimly lit hotel room at a table, his face buried in his hands. He remains there, silent and motionless, for about an hour before finally straightening up and revealing his sorrowful expression. For a brief moment, he seeks rest and tries to sleep. The next morning, Helt and Harrington meet at the World News Cafe in Amman Airport, each carrying a small suitcase containing only the essentials in clothing and supplies. Harrington pours a generous amount of milk and sugar into his coffee, stirring it in an almost theatrically slow, indulgent manner, while looking at Helt, who has just settled into the red-colored leather seat of the cafe.
"That was pretty close, my dear. We still waited until it got loud before stepping in. After all, unlike our politicians, we tend to be more discreet and don't interfere too much in the work of our German colleagues, unless they find themselves in truly dire situations that require us to bail them out."
Held responds after a brief, scrutinizing glance.
That's really kind of you. When it comes to brute force, you're certainly well equipped, my dear. You generously leave the delicate work to me, only to swoop in at the showdown, like in an American Western, and claim the glory.
Stick to what you know best. You Germans have a few skills that fit quite well into our plans, but in the end, it's only about who wears the yellow jersey. No offense.
After taking a sip of his probably overly sweetened coffee, without showing any reaction, he says in a patronizing tone,
Let's put an end to these petty, pointless arguments and get to the essentials.
Helt holds his serious gaze for a few seconds, then finally smiles with a slightly sarcastic expression and replies,
The essentials. Good idea. What are your proposals for the next steps in Colombia?
This has all been planned long ago and is already on C's desk. Your esteemed Korean associate, what's his name again, is authorized to accompany you if you wish. Your superior C seems quite impressed with his qualities as an auxiliary agent.
Jin-Woo Park.
Be that as it may, we will accompany you into the Colombian jungle with a special intervention unit and position ourselves at a safe distance from Volkov's headquarters to avoid drawing attention. We don't want to risk being detected and having Volkov send her tin army after us. That would be the end of the mission, considering how I assess their effectiveness in dense jungle compared to a unit of living combatants. You, Helt, will hopefully possess the necessary skills to infiltrate the facility unnoticed with your companion.
Helt looks at Harrington with a piercing gaze.
You underestimate me.
An hour later, Helt is already on the plane to Colombia, gazing thoughtfully out of the small window of a large Royal Jordanian aircraft at the endless expanse of clouds, above which the plane seems to hover motionless. After an exhausting 20-hour flight, Adrian Helt finally lands in Bogotá, the bustling capital of Colombia. The night is cool, the high-altitude climate unusually crisp, yet the city's lights cast a warm glow. From the modern El Dorado International Airport, he makes his way into the busy downtown area to spend the night in a small, inconspicuous hotel. Through the thin door of his room, the distant sounds of honking cars and street musicians drift in. Helt sleeps only a few hours before a knock on his door wakes him early in the morning.
Adrian, are you awake?
A familiar voice calls out. Helt jumps out of the plain, creaking hotel bed, and opens the door. With great joy, he sees Park's face beaming at him in his typically energetic and lively manner. The two embrace warmly, and shortly after, they sit in the modest hotel bar, sharing the experiences of the past few days over a rich, aromatic Colombian coffee.
Adrian, I'm really sorry for what happened. That beautiful, intelligent young woman seemed very dear to you.
Helt looks at Park for a few seconds before responding.
You will help me put an end to this once and for all. With your help, we should be able to enter the facility without major difficulties. Am I right?
Park smiles with a hint of arrogance.
My guys from the Chlorophyll Syndicate and I did some groundwork. The facility connects to the internet exclusively through a specially configured satellite system. The data traffic is routed to a hidden node in Singapore. This node is completely isolated, utilizing multiple layers of encryption, proxies, and obfuscated IP addresses, making it undetectable in conventional networks. We had a hard time finding any trace at all, but after a sleepless night, we were in. Through high-frequency signal analysis and intercepted IP packets, we managed to exploit a vulnerability in the satellite transmission. We were able to inject small data packets, though they only revealed fragmented information about the facility's architecture.
Helt interrupts Park with a slightly mocking smile.
Chlorophyll Syndicate. Impressive what you guys do in your free time. But this will be a whole different ballgame than hacking companies you consider harmful to the climate just to mess with them a little.
Exactly. The facility is a digital Fort Knox. If I have a small laptop available, I can probably tap into that satellite on site and briefly disrupt the facility's security mechanisms, allowing us to slip in unnoticed. However, a lot depends on how many guards are stationed there and where exactly they are positioned. We weren't able to determine that with our resources.
Helt pats Park on the shoulder approvingly.
No offense. I'm actually a little impressed.
Shortly after, the two leave the hotel bar together and head to the domestic airport. A short, shaky flight on a small aircraft takes them to Villavicencio, the gateway to Colombia's eastern plains. From there, their journey into isolation continues on an old, rickety and overcrowded bus. Locals and a few tourists share the cramped seats while cages of chickens and large sacks of goods are stacked in the aisle. Their path leads through grass-covered plains with large hills in the distance, slowly swallowed by dense jungle.
Wow, this place is absolutely insane. I'm guessing it's not exactly in our employer's best interest if I do a little Insta story about this, or maybe?
You're welcome to do that if you want to make acquaintances with a curious gorilla or a hungry predator on your way back through the savannah on foot.
It's all good. It was just a thought. I'm back in full agent mode.
After hours of jolting and swaying, the bus finally reaches the small town of La Macarena, a remote settlement on the edge of a national park. Eventually, after a steep climb, the Cascada Verde appears before them, a small, hidden eco-lodge at the jungle's edge. The wooden and bamboo structure blends seamlessly into the lush surroundings. Helt has withdrawn to the small rustic room, where a creaking wooden bed with a rock-hard mattress awaits them for the night and makes a call to Werner. Meanwhile, Park explores the lodge's surroundings, but, being a city-bred Korean, remains cautious and avoids venturing too far into the jungle terrain, determined not to repeat his encounter with a dangerous native species, as had happened in Kenya. After a humid, sultry night set against a mesmerizing symphony of nature, gentle, rhythmic chirping of crickets, the distant plaintive, almost eerily human-like calls of a tropical owl, Park suddenly jolts awake as the sharp clatter and rustling of movement echo just outside the lodge.
Adrian, what's going on out there?
He calls out in alarm. Helt turns away from Park and mumbles drowsily,
That's our colleagues from the CIA. They're setting up their camp here. I haven't seen any of the lodge staff since last night, so I'm pretty sure our American allies have turned this place into a high-security zone.
Shortly after, Harrington stands in the doorway with a smoldering cigarette in his mouth.
Good morning, gentlemen. In 1 hour, you should be ready to march if you don't want to miss the grand showdown.
Harrington leads the two outside, where they find a hastily arranged campsite protected by camouflage nets. In front of the tents stand 12 visibly well-trained men with light gear, specialized equipment, including night vision devices, and Heckler and Koch HK-416 assault rifles as their primary weapons. The small unit is further supported by 2 additional men, snipers armed with an M110 SASS and an MK-13 Mod 7 sniper rifle.
Wow, this is better than any action game on the Xbox. Impressive.
The strong scent of tobacco smoke lingers in the air as Harrington appears behind Helt and Park.
Agent Calloway from the Special Activities Division is leading the assault team, while I am in charge of the Strategic Command.
Held looks at him somewhat incredulously and asks cheekily,
Did you perhaps marry the president's niece, my dear Harrington?
Helt, don't get cheeky. What the German intelligence service considers major missions, I wouldn't have even mentioned over breakfast in my prime.
Well then, I guess we're lucky to have you with us.
Right on schedule, the team, led by Calloway with Harrington, Helt and Park following, sets off into the dense jungle. Park visibly seems to enjoy the fact that they are embarking on the mission clad in intimidating-looking camouflage suits. After a long and arduous march through the eerie and hostile jungle, the reconnaissance team finally spots a well-camouflaged facility in the distance at dusk, shimmering through the dense vegetation. In the center stands a large building, surrounded by smaller structures, some equipped with large antennas. Completely drenched in sweat, Park grabs Helt by the shoulder.
We have reached our destination, it seems. I wouldn't have lasted much longer with all this gear and having to watch every step to avoid stepping on an aggressive snake or suddenly playing Who Blinks First with a black jaguar.
All right, you joker. As long as you keep your sense of humor, I don't have to worry about you. I know you well enough by now.
He turns to Harrington.
The intervention team should fall back from here. I'll scout the area while Park gains access to the security system with his laptop.
Harrington agrees and stays behind with the special unit, while Helt and Park cautiously move closer to the facility. Around 30 heavily armed and highly alert guards are stationed outside. Helt whispers to Park.
There are likely at least as many stationed inside the facility.
Park responds anxiously.
Well, this is going to be fun.
You stay here and do your job. I'll make sure to clear us a path into the building.
As soon as he says this, he cautiously sneaks up on one of the guards stationed at a side door of the building and silently knocks him out with a precise strike. He turns to Park and signals with his hands that it's time to unlock the door electronically. Park, frantically working on his laptop, shrugs slightly, looking somewhat unsure. Just as Helt is about to retreat into the cover of the jungle to rejoin Park, the door finally unlocks with a loud click. Park catches up with Helt, and together they enter the unknown building. The interior of Volkov's facility is a futuristic fusion of cold elegance and ruthless functionality, resembling more of a spaceship than an abandoned drug factory. The walls are made of glossy black metal, with an almost mirror-like surface, interrupted by embedded LED strips emitting a dim, cold light. The ceilings are high, crisscrossed with intricate pipelines and cable networks that resemble the veins of a colossal organism. In some areas, they are shielded by plexiglass, revealing pulsating lights beneath. The two stealthily pass drone charging stations along the walls, where small, arachnid-like surveillance drones are docked. Automatic doors glide open silently as they approach, sealing shut with a vacuum-like hiss. The facility's interior is bathed in a diffuse, neon-like glow, primarily in cold blue and white, lending the space an almost extraterrestrial ambience. As Helt signals Park to stay a few meters behind and steps into a corridor with his gun drawn, a towering man suddenly emerges from behind and effortlessly takes him down in a chokehold. Just as the guard reaches for his comms device to call for backup, Park, hiding behind a corner, smashes him over the head with his laptop, which shatters into countless pieces from the impact. After securing and gagging the unconscious guard in a side room, the two continue deeper into the facility, constantly at risk of being discovered. Upon entering another hallway, Helt raises a finger to his lips, his gaze sharp and intense, a clear signal for absolute silence. A figure emerges from a nearby room, appearing more like a scientist than a soldier, shuffling clumsily into another corridor. Helt and Park cautiously examine the door and peek inside. The room appears to be a small control hub, equipped with multiple computer stations and several monitors, some even embedded into the walls. Park whispers excitedly, his voice trembling slightly.
Adrian, this seems to be a small digital hub, exactly what I need to learn more about the facility. I'm really not doing this without serious fear, but I think it's better if I stay here and try my luck.
Helt nods in agreement and sets off in search of Volkov. Carefully, he lets his gaze wander through the maze-like corridors, shimmering in dim light, scanning every corner with keen attention. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor go out, and a single monitor casts an eerie flicker into the darkness. On the screen, Volkov appears, a cold smile on her lips.
Hello, Adrian. Nice to see you. I hope you enjoyed your time at the Fluffy Puffy Eco Lodge and my little Amazon zoo with tame snakes and cuddly predators.
Held is beside himself, takes a brief moment to collect himself, and rushes back to the room where he left Park. He sneaks up to the door and sees Park sitting at the computer. On the wall, a large monitor also displays Volkov's face. Park appears to be typing nonsense into the keyboard. and Volkov repeats exactly what he types. Completely confused, with his pistol raised, he steps into the room and aims it at Park.
Tell me that I'm wrong, and that you're not the one pulling the strings behind all of this. The encounter in the taxi in Busan, the impressive story of the harmless internet nerd. And all of this is just a distraction, buying time to carry out more operations to unsettle the world.
Park stands up, trembling and speechless, sweat beading on his forehead. He barely manages to utter a word, but an incredulous Adrian can be guessed from his lips just as the lights turn on, revealing Jin-Ho Kim behind Helt, accompanied by an armed escort.
Not quite, Mr. Helt. It was a Korean indeed, but not your pathetic little companion. As I see it, at least he managed to unmask me.
Held turns around, takes a few steps back, and stops next to Park. Completely taken aback, he exclaims,
Well, it seems like nothing here is as it appears.
Now that you are in my custody, our little secret stays within the family, before you both take it to the grave. As for the men who surely accompanied you and are now waiting in the jungle for your command, a small unit of my intelligent artificial army will take care of them. I had them flown in by helicopter specifically for such a scenario.
Kim walks over to a microphone at a control panel and commands his AI army to deploy into the jungle.
What on earth are you trying to achieve with your actions?
In the beginning, I truly had an idealistic vision. Suddenly, I had a tool in my hands that could have made everything in the world better. I could remove all the incompetent and selfish politicians from powerful positions. Those who fail to provide the world with the security and prosperity it deserves. My father always taught me how much people suffer under powers that hide behind the masks of communism, capitalism, religion, or other facades, waging wars while letting the subjugated masses fight and die. His father, my grandfather, was severely wounded in the Korean War and was no longer able to provide for his family afterward. This made my own childhood all the harsher, shaped by the belief that life does not favor us, that we can only gain wealth, respect, and honor through immense sweat and blood, and that otherwise we are worth nothing. Politics, in the end, is only about power, money, and control. All things that do nothing to benefit the little people, like my grandfather back then, the ones who die or get wounded for this greed. If anything, the opposite is true.
After a brief pause, he continues in an arrogant tone.
There were a few other idealists at IHAI Lab with influential connections. Over time, after countless nights of preparation, I managed to create a digital replica of a powerful oligarch, Letitia Volkov. My company sent me to her as a lead engineer, programmer, and architect of a groundbreaking new AI technology because she had shown great interest in acquiring a significant share of the company's stock. As far as I know, she had not the slightest idea of the military potential hidden within the product. She was only interested in a highly profitable stake in a promising enterprise. At our meeting in Kazakhstan, she was completely unsuspecting and visibly surprised when my associates suddenly drew their weapons, placed her under arrest, and from that moment on, I replaced her with a digital replica under my control. It was not difficult to learn about one of her former key associates, someone completely devoted to her, Dmitry Korovin. Through him, we gained everything we needed to establish our global network in a militarized fashion. We simply took the money from Volkov. She had more than enough of it. Over time, however, I found that I truly enjoyed the game of power and control, so I changed my plan. I abandoned my quest to avenge my grandfather and to be an obedient son to my father, who never treated me particularly well anyway. I eliminated my co-conspirators from our leadership ranks and set out to take control of the world. While your men in the jungle are about to face an unwinnable and hopeless battle against my AI unit, preparations have already been made to dethrone multiple world powers simultaneously, in exactly 24 hours. The loss of our small outpost in Jordan is of little consequence to this plan.
Held stares at Kim in disbelief.
You are completely insane. Possibly brilliant in your skills, but otherwise totally mad. That's all there is to it. and you will pay for everything you want to do to people and have already done. Just like your lackey Korovin.
Oh, and you, Helt, want to make me pay? How exactly do you plan to do that in your current situation?
The lights in the room flicker abruptly, and Kim's guards are shoved aside by armed AI robots stumbling chaotically through the space. At the same time, Volkov's static image vanishes from the monitor, replaced by a young Korean-looking man. He calls out for Park.
Jinwoo, we managed to infiltrate your control bot into the facility's system. It's causing quite a bit of chaos there for now. But I can't say how long it will last. I can't see you, unfortunately, but I hope you're receiving my message through the channel you called Volkov's call, and that you make good use of our action.
Helt jumps up and shouts.
You can count on that. You climate heroes.
As multiple shots ring out in the chaos, Helt manages to take down 2 of the guards, while the others are occupied with the wildly flailing and grasping robots, which attack indiscriminately. Kim flees down the corridor under the cover of darkness, and shortly after, a deafening alarm blares across the facility. Helt briefly turns to Park before taking up the chase.
Hide in one of the cabinets at the back of the room and wait until I return.
Park nods at him, taps 2 fingers against his temple, and points at him before disappearing into the background. As Helt sprints down the corridor, 3 men break free from the influence of the rogue robots and give chase. They open fire immediately, but in the flickering corridor lights, he is already barely visible. Moments later, gunfire erupts from outside, followed by screams piercing the night. One after another, explosions shake the facility. Completely exhausted, Helt finally reaches a spacious, illuminated corridor. At the far end stands Kim, and in front of him, a towering combat robot, its high-caliber weapon trained directly on Helt.
May I introduce you to my new prototype? I have named him Thanatos. He is equipped with a new kernel that allows him to think and act far beyond the limits of human intelligence. And he is not so easily manipulated by ridiculous little bots programmed by simple-minded children.
Helt freezes in the face of the deadly weapon aimed at him, but his mind is working feverishly to find a way to turn the situation in his favor. He is surprised that the machine waits for the final words of its creator, instead of simply liquidating him, who is a defenseless and hopeless target. A second seems to stretch into an eternity. The rivaling gazes of the men electrify the air as if it is ready to explode at any moment. The humanoid robot remains motionless and idle with its weapon. As Kim shouts at the machine, a single shot is fired. Kim looks at Helt with wide-open eyes, hit by a bullet from Helt's pistol.
It seems you have assigned the machine a little too much intellect. For whatever reason, it has chosen not to attack in order to protect its master and creator.
While Helt says this, Kim collapses lifelessly to the ground. Helt eyes the still, motionless robot in the room suspiciously and speaks to it as if it were an opponent on the battlefield who just now seems to have allied with him.
While these chlorophyll bots have caused quite a bit of chaos, Kim may have unintentionally instilled something like morality and humanity in you.
Harrington enters the room in full combat gear, accompanied by a black-haired woman who looks both beautiful and regal, with an air of elegance and style.
May I introduce you both? Letitia Volkov. We were able to free her from the clutches of her captors. She has already told us everything she knows. Congratulations, my dear colleague, on your brilliant work. I believe our genius AI architect can no longer cause any trouble in the world.
You're welcome, my dear colleague from the only real intelligence agency in the world.
Now don't be too modest. I must admit, I was quite impressed by your work when those terrifying killer machines suddenly started chasing the monkeys in the jungle instead of attacking us. We surely wouldn't have stood a chance.
As Park enters the scene, he is met by Helt, with a friendly and grateful smile, silently telling a story that only the 2 of them understand.
Forgive me, my friend, for even considering that you might be playing a false game.
It's okay, boss.
Then Volkov turns to Helt.
How can I show you my gratitude? And most importantly, how do I regain my reputation?
Well, my esteemed colleague Harrington will surely have an idea, won't he?
Held shoots him a mischievous grin, while Harrington looks visibly taken aback, unable to find a response. Back in Berlin, Helt reports the events to Werner.
That was a coup, Helt. But it seems the world will never know who was really behind it.
Maybe that's for the best.
He looks at a photo of Elena, which he discovers in a red file on Werner's desk, and whispers,
For you,